Just entered the No Delusion Zone. I'm David Dubato. Today, my very special guest is Oleg Magaletsky. Oleg is the founder and coordinator of the Free Nations Post-Russia Forum. This is a community and public platform that unites the leaders of the movements of the captive nations and regions within the so-called Russian Federation. Also, Lithuanians, Poles, British, Japanese, Czechs, Finns, Ukrainians, Georgians, Austrians, Belarusians, Turks, Germans, Kazakhs, Azerbaijanis, Americans, and more. The aim of this organization is promoting the peaceful and non-violent decolonization of the Russian Federation under Tsar Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. So, it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the No Delusion Zone, Oleg Magaletsky. Oleg, welcome.
Hi, nice to meet you, and thank you for the invitation. It's a great pleasure for me to speak with you, David.
Well, same here. Again, I'm very glad to have you here today. As you mentioned before we went on the air, today, of course, is a very historic day for the United States with the inauguration in about 2 hours of Donald Trump. And that certainly will affect the topic that we're going to discuss today, which is the future of Russia, Ukraine, and Europe. However, there are many, many pressing issues aside from Donald Trump, although he would disagree with that. He would say that he's the only pressing issue today and every day, but that's not true. So I gave a brief introduction, Oleg, on you and the organization. If you could, because I'm sure that many, if not most of my audience is very interested in the current situation in Ukraine, but is not familiar with your organization, the Post-Russia Forum. So if you could please explain how that came about and currently what topic or what projects are you working on?
Yeah, thank you. So Free Nation Post-Russia Forum is community that try to unite and to promote the idea of decolonization, such called Russian Federation. No, it's paradox because in the name of this country, Russia Federation, you see the World Federation, but Russia isn't real federation like United States or Germany or Austria or even Brazil or India. It's a classical colonial empire, the last one in Europe. For last 17 years in Europe, we have a lot of decolonizing process. For example, in our times, we don't have British Empire or French Empire or Portuguese Empire or Dutch Empire. All it gone, in previous 70 years. Also before gone Ottoman Empire or Austro-Hungarian Empire, but Russian Empire still exists. It called for Russian Federation, but nevertheless, after the 1918, when it was the first stage of decolonizing Russian Empire, when Poles, Lithuanian, Finns, Latvian, and Estonian become independent, but Latvian, Estonian, and Latvian people was reoccupied it by USSR in 1914s. It still exists like empire, but it calls United USSR, so United Socialist Republic. But it was also colonial republic with the metropolia in Moscow. Then the second stage of decolonization Russian Empire was in 1991, when 15th country become independent. You know, it's from Estonia in the west till Kazakhstan in the east. It also includes the independence of Sakartvelo, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Ukraine, Latvia, Estonia, and so on. And now we are on the ground and probably before the third and final stage of the colonized Russian Empire, which could bring independence for other parts of this colonial empire. For example, Sakha, like Moscow people call it Yakutia, Buryatia, Tatarstan, Bashkortostan, Ingushetia, Ichkeria, Ingria, Smolandia, and so on. Why it's very important? Because unfortunately, the problem which we have not only in Ukraine, not only in Europe, but in the whole world with Russia, it's not a problem of Putin. So Putin isn't a source of problem. It's like the result. The main source is the colonial system of this country, because Moscow, like Metropolia, have their colonies in Siberia when they have oil, gas, diamond, gold, and they could take it from colonies. They could take people ingenious people, yes, or captive nation that they are rules, and send it for the war, for repression inside Russia and militarism aggression outside. And the point of our platform is try to show people in the world, stakeholders, also in countries of European Union, in NATO, J7, that we shouldn't repeat that mistake that was done in 1991. When people also in the United States think that, oh, Yeltsin, he's a great democratic leader and everything will be good, so we could forget about the USSR problem, we will have the great Russia friendship, we could invite Russia for G8 and everything will be okay. But not even when Putin became a president, even when it was Yeltsin, just 3 years after the USSR collapse, Yeltsin started war against Ichkeria, Chechen Republic of Ichkeria. Chechen Republic of Ichkeria never was a part of Russian Federation. They go out USSR and don't seem this protocol to become a part of Russian Federation. So Yeltsin started the first war against independent country. And then Putin do the second time. So our point is try to look for Russia what really is colonial empires that should go through the decolonization. And it's very important not only for captive nation and colonial region still under the Moscow colonial rule, not for all neighbors, yes, modern Russia Federation from Finland, Ukraine, and Poland to Mongolia, Japan, and Korea, but also for whole world. Because if Moscovia, Russia won't be a colonial empire, we won't have problem not only in Ukraine or Georgia or Moldova, but we won't have such a big problem in Middle East, in Central Africa, when PKK Wagner and other military company support dictatorship and other problems. We won't have a lot of problem with, for example, Maduro or Venezuela and other points which are on the Russian military opportunities. So we are working on that to promote this idea, to make bridges, to find some roadmaps, what we should do, and to be prepared for this scenario of post-Russia world.
I understand it very recently. In fact, there was an article in the Moscow Times that I saw where you've several organizations and actually some platforms, news platforms in Russia now have been declared, I forget what they call them, it changes all the time, enemy of the people, foreign agents, and so forth and so on, because of their affiliation with your organization. So things are rolling along there in terms of the repression that Putin is handing out to any organization that even attempts to think of themselves as independent. Oleg, just in the 20th century, there were many, and you alluded to some of them, many independence movements within the current Russian Federation. You talked about the Baltic states, Ukraine, and many of the other nations that are now part of the Russian Federation. Could you just briefly talk about the 20th century and the independence movements that were crushed by the Soviet Union after Russia ended its civil war?
Yeah, it's very interesting topic. Unfortunately, not a lot even of professor in Western universities speak about it, but there are two main points. First of all, Russia isn't monolith. Yeah, they try to send this narrative that they are one united nation from occupied Kaliningrad. They call the city Germany or Poland or Lithuania city Königsberg, or Poland people say Krolewets. Lithuanian people call this Karaliaučius, till Vladivostok, which is north part of Manchuria, which was occupied by Russia only in the second part of 19th century, but it isn't true. So 100 years ago, when Russian Empire started this first stage of collapsing, there was some national country which were try to build political nation states. For example, Estonia, Latvia, Ukraine, which you mentioned, and also there were some countries that now are part of Russian Federation. For example, Bashkortostan is people who live in the Volga region. They're very rich. They could be very rich because they have a lot of oil, gas, and other resources. There is 3 million people, Bashkortostan people, it's the neighbors of Tatarstan, but they very poor. Why? Why they couldn't live like Qatar or United Emirates? They have everything because all their resources taken by Moscow and they have nothing. So they have their national movement, a national state from 1918 till 1922. Tatarstan also is a country of Tatar people. There also were Karelia. Karelia, it's very close for Finland. And thanks for Carl Gustav Mannerheim, who was the general of Russian Imperial Army, but then he understands that he is a Finns, and he was fighting against people also both such called white Russian who wanted to have one united Russian, and also against red one who was Bolshevik, and Finland become independent. But Karelia, which are very similar with Finland, loose. They have also for 4 years the independent states. Also, it was Chuvashia state. Also, there was Gornaya Respublika, Mountain Republic, which include modern Ichkeria, Dagestan region, Cherkessia, and so on. And also, it's very interesting that not only different nations have their states, but Russian people have different state for themselves. They don't want to have one stage for all Russians. For example, like we have in Europe now, we have Greek people who live in Greece and Greek people who live in Cyprus. We have 100 years ago Germany people who live not only in Germany but in Austria, in Switzerland, and so on. So it was the same for Polish statehood for Russian people. So they have it's called Far East Republic. It's the region of Khabarovsk, Vladivostok, so Pacific Ocean coast of modern Russia. And this Pacific Far East Republic was independent from Moscow till 1923. So even the time when Ukraine, for example, was occupied by a red Bolshevik, this country was independent. Also, there was independent country in Siberia. It was Siberia Republic, which wanted to be independent, like a real federation. Like Canada or United States without Moscow. There was also in European part in Germanlandia Republic. It's between Estonia and Finland modern. So the St. Petersburg region. It was a lot. But not only 100 years ago it was even when USSR collapsed, not only Lithuania, Estonia, Ukraine, Azerbaijan wanted to become independent, even some countries and regions which are now in Russia Federation, they also they have the act of sovereignty, not only Chechen Republic, Ichkeria, but Tatarstan, Bashkortostan, Sakha, Karelia, and also some Russian region, for example, Ural Republic. It was even after the USSR collapse, it was 1993, when people in Yekaterinburg, this is the biggest city in this region, they declared about they wanted to have Ural Republic, and they even prepared to have their own currency. It's called Ural francs. It's very interesting. Not a lot of people know about it. And also, even in St. Petersburg, it was a former imperial capital, but they also don't want to live with Moscow. And in 1993, they have a referendum about republic status for the city. And now they have very strong movement for independence in Greece. So it's also very interesting because it's not the story of this year, of this 2 year, or even for 220 years. No, it's the story that started 100 years ago. It was very active 30 years ago. And now after the full-scale invasion Russia to Ukraine, it's also starting to rise interest for these narratives and roadmap for the future.
Oleg, if all of the nations and regions who were formerly independent as recently as the beginning of the 20th century were taken out of the Russian Federation, how large an area would Russia actually be?
It's very interesting the future of former metropolia, Moscow and the region near Moscow. in my mind, it could be three main scenarios for Moscow and this metropolitan Russian state. The first one is like Austria after Austro-Hungarian Empire. So it wouldn't be a very big state. It will be continental without any sea coast. With the Moscow like the capital of the main city. So I think it's probably one of the best scenario. There is some people who live in Moscow and this region, which called in Russia Zolotoye Koltso, so it's like a golden circle. So it's a city between Moscow, and they have their prospect of independent states, which called Zaleskaya Rus. So it's like far forest Rus. And it's first scenario for Metropolia. The second one is the Turkish scenario, like a Turkey after the Ottoman Empire. So Turkey lose all their not Turkish lands. Yes, they lose Balkans, they lose the Arabic of modern Arabic territory. They lose some territory in Caucasus, but they saved all Turkish territory. They changed the capital. So for this Russian national statehood, it could called Russia Republic or something like that. It will be bigger. So it will be not like modern Austria with 1,100 kilometers, but probably 8,100 or 1 million kilometers. It will include all territories from St. Petersburg in the west part till Yekaterinburg in the east part, from Arkhangelsk in the north till probably Astrakhan in the south. It could be the second point, and in this way, probably the main idea is to build real federation without Moscow like this revanchism idea. So probably the capital will be in some other city, for example, Nizhny Novgorod or Vladimir or who knows, Tver, Pskov, something like that. And the third scenario could be like, Moscow, like the city-state, for example, like we have Singapore or we have some Monaco. So everything will be in different countries, independent, and Moscow will be also like the mega city, and it also will be an independent state.
Well, as you know, Oleg, in Russia, a very common saying is Moscow is not really Russia. The rest of Russia is the real Russia. And having been there many times, I understand that Moscow is a huge metropolitan city. It's richer than any other area of current day Russia. The people, for the most part, are far more educated. So I may be wrong, but I think if what you're talking about comes to be in the future, there wouldn't be a lot of love lost and a lot of tears shed by the people living in other regions outside of Russia if they were separated from Moscow and given their independence. What do you think?
I'm totally agree with you, because people who live in Russia now, not only other nation, like Buryats or Sakha people or Karels or Tatar, Bashkorts, and Russian people who live in Siberia, who live in Far East territory, who live in India, they hate Moscow because they know that all their money, all their resources go for Moscow. And in Moscow, there is bureaucracy, there is Chekists, FSB, and other repression tools who are not thinking about the comfort of citizens of Russia, to build roads, to build good medical hospitals, to build infrastructure and so on. They're thinking about this velichie, yes, so this idea of Russia nation like the main nation in the world. So of course, people in this region won't be sorry to not be in part in one country with Moscow, and we try to work with these people, try to independent, and to become independent is not the end of the story. It's just beginning of the story, because much more harder not to proclaim independence, but to build successful independent state. So state building is very important and hard, and if we will think about how to make this new independent states successful, to people who will live there to be happy and not to think about this past, about revanchism, to be a part of empire. It will be the main thing. So we should not just think about decolonization Russia, but also about reconstruction of post-Russian spaces to build not a frontier, to build not a buffer, but not frontier, yeah, a frontier of our values of European and America values of the democratic, of the human rights, and so on. And we should working with these leaders, with these movements now, before they become have even authority and power. Because if you want to work with them, what will be? You know, we have a great threat of Chinese, People Republic of China. And if we will working with Buryat, Sakha people, with Russian people who live in Siberia region, these new states could be area for United States, for European Union, for Japan, for Taiwan, for Republic of Korea. It could be liberal democratic states. But if you won't work with them, what will be? Beijing will come there, will buy everything, and it will be then friendship for Beijing. And people who live there will just change their Moscow colonial rule for Beijing colonial rule. No one wanted it, and it will be bad for all free world. So I think it's very important to speak and to have this discussion now, not later.
Well, you mentioned China, and you know there's a very long border with China, of course, and Russia. And not too long ago, I don't know if it was a year ago or 2 years ago, there was a report that the Chinese geographic whoever makes maps in China redrew the map and put back the original Chinese names to the cities and villages that are on the Siberian side of the border between China and Russia. And many people took this as a sign that in the very near future, China is either going to buy or take militarily that part of Siberia, which used to be Chinese. What are your thoughts on that? Have you read those reports, and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course, I have seen this map and read these reports. Two main points. First one, People Republic of China isn't happy to decolonize Russia. They wanted to have united, isolated, and weak Russia, like they have it now, like the vassals, where they can take resources, sell some technologies, and so on. So Beijing won't be, for the last moment, not support the idea of decolonization. But the second point is, if you understand that Russia, or it's better say Moscovia, because it's Russia is also a stolen name. It's not Russia at all. Moscovia is the last colonial empire in Europe. We have two colonial empires in the world, Russia and People Republic of China. So this territory which you mentioned isn't Chinese territory. It isn't Han territory. It's territory of Manchuria. It's territory of South Mongolia, of Taiwan, and so on. So we should understand also that Beijing is also colonial metropolis, and some captive nation and region also under the colonial control by Beijing. For example, East Turkestan, Manchuria, Tibet, Cantonia, Inner Mongolia, and so on. So when we will thinking in that road, we understand that the colonizing of Russia is also a key to decolonize People Republic of China, and we could build much more free and much more safety territory in all Northern Eurasia and Eastern Asia. So in my mind, it's very important to work together, European Union, Europe, even not European Union, whole Europe, which include Great Britain, United Kingdom, which include Ukraine, which includes Turkey, yeah, and some Caucasus nation, which include Canada and the United States, but also our area in Eastern Asia. So Republic of Korea, Japan, and Taiwan, Philippines, so on, to try to look on this problem like it really is. So we don't have only problem with Russian Federation. We have problem with this areas of dictatorship where Russian Federation, People Republic of China, North Korea, and Iran together, and some of them proxy and satellites like Maduro, Lukashenko, and so on, and they wanted to disorder international law and human rights. So we should understand that this cringe axis, cringe because the first letter, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, if you want to stop them now, prevent, they probably will start the Third World War, because they know that they don't have the answers, and Russia will not only attack Ukraine, they will try to attack, for example, Lithuania or Latvia. Probably in some moment, People's Republic of China will try to attack Taiwan or Philippines, and so on. So it's very important to understand that the colonization of Russia is key to prevent Third World War.
You know, last summer, 2024, when Ukraine launched a very surprise incursion into Kursk in Russian territory, it took most of the world by surprise, not the Ukrainian military, but the rest of the world. And what really got my attention, not just the actual military action, was when the citizens of Kursk, who were displaced, some of them were killed, many of their homes and farms were destroyed. They went back to a time of the Soviet Union, and they wrote letters to the Tsar, in this case, Vladimir Putin. And they asked him, you know, please, Vladimir, help us. We need help. Our houses are destroyed. We have no money. We have no just clothes on our back, blah, blah, blah. And they wrote these letters to Putin. Putin didn't answer, of course. And after several weeks, and with tens of thousands, if not more than 100,000 people, Russian citizens displaced during this incursion, I'm wondering how much of the fact that Moscow, specifically Putin, doesn't give a damn about the Russian people, how much of that may have gotten through to the people, at least the people of Kursk, and maybe this will get around to some of the other folks in Russia to know that he's not doing anything in the best interest of the Russian people. What about that thought? Because to the rest of the world, Oleg, most of the world, they think that all the Russian people are 100% behind Vladimir Putin, that they hate all Ukrainians, they're for the war, they want the Soviet Union to come back, or maybe even the Russian Empire, and they're all just vicious killers. What do you think? Is there any cracks starting in Russia right now with the Russian population anywhere?
Yeah, you know, it's a case about how people in Kursk region reacted to Ukrainian offensive in the August last year. Is very illustrated what Russia really is. And also the second case is very illustrated is the such-called Prigozhin March. So two very important cases which show that people who live in modern Russia Federation, they aren't active. They totally passive, and they won't fight for their lands, for their home. They won't fight for Putin. They won't fight for great idea of Russian Federation. They fight just for money. People who are fighting now in Ukraine, or because they don't have other choice. So even if some inside Russia or outside Russia will come for example, people who wanted to bring Siberia independent back, or Karelia or Ingria or Smolensk, and say, sorry, Putin isn't a power now. We will have independent Karelia or Ingria. No one will fight with them. In St. Petersburg, so Petrozavodsk or Vladivostok. Much more, if these people won't be crazy, a lot of people will support them just months or 3 or 5 months later. Because people who live there in Russia, they understand that Putin is a Tsar, and before they have Stalin, they have Brezhnev, this very huge country. You know, when I sometimes speak with different people, for example, people from United States or Europe, they say, oh, it's a very strange idea of decolonizing Russia because the people the same, you know, it's better to have one united country. For example, you have Tyrol, South Tyrol and North Tyrol, or you have California, South and North California, different states. People who say that don't understand that between Moscow, even not Vladivostok, but between Moscow and, for example, Kursk, it's 100 kilometers. And people who live there, it's no democratic, there is no subsidiary. So they have just, you know, like this straight vertical. So, and if something become changed, it's like a house of cards, everything destroyed very quickly. So in our lives, just 35 years ago, everybody have seen it like it was with USSR. In August of 1991, just few days, few weeks, everything was collapsed. In my country, why this Free Nation Post-Russia Forum are founded and supported by people from Poland, Ukraine, Lithuania, Estonia, because we were a part of Moscow Empire. We know what is it, and we become independent. So we know how to not be a part of that, and we wanted to help and support people who are still under the Moscow colonial rule. So in our countries, we know what is it when the president of United States, George Bush, come to our parliament in the first day of August in 1991 and say, you don't need independence. You have a great Gorbachev guy. You wanted to have this new deal with Moscow and so on. But 3 weeks later, everything changes. So we know what is it, and probably we'll have the same situation like it was in Russian Empire in 1917, in the last day of February, or like it was in the USSR in the August of 1991. Everything will be very fast and everything will collapse just in few days. Just 1 month ago, we see how it could be in Syria. If we talk with you, for example, just 2 months ago, and I would say that, in 2025, we won't have Assad in Damascus and it will be changed very fast. You could say, oh, it's not very reasonable, or we have not a lot of change for it, but it changed because all dictatorship in Russia also, they don't have real power. They have just power when they have money to pay people for fighting and when they have people who could kill for them. But if it changes, everything changes.
Well, you mentioned Prigozhin and also the passivity of the Russian people. I totally agree with you. They are so meek right now, and there's many reasons for that. The fact that they've never known democracy. They've only lived under dictatorships for over 800 years and other reasons. But I think what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, that all it's going to take is a spark, is the right person or the right group of people to ignite a movement, which is what happened in 1917. Like you said, it happened almost overnight. You're not going to get the mass protests, millions of people in the streets, at least not right away. But if the right spark is lit, the people being so passive will go with the change because I'm sorry, they're sheep. And the government, any dictatorship, as you said, is not strong, and it will fall like a house of cards if the right situation presents itself. Do I have your thoughts accurately on that?
Yeah, totally agree. I think it's very, very high risk of this scenario. Yeah, I think there is a lot of change that it would be like it was in February of 1917 or August of 1991. Probably it will be some mix of these two 2 days for the last 100 years when Russia stays collapsing, but not collapse finally. And now it should be the final decolonization, because if there will be one more circle and Russia revanchism, this idea of big Russia, great Russia will one more times reborn, it will be one more time more war, more repression, and so on. So our idea is not to occupy Russia or have war with Russia. No, it's a paradox, I'm Ukrainian, yes, so and also in our platform, not only people from Taiwan, Japan, United States, Canada, but also people from Finland, Latvia, Estonia, Romania, and so on. And our freedom, our state could be free before people who want to enslave us, they aren't free. So if I want to live in my state independent and try to rebuild my state, I should free people who try to enslave me. So if people who live in Russia, they aren't free, for me it will be very hard to be free also, because everything overconnected. And we can't just build a wall and think that everything will be finished if Putin died, or someone new Tsar will come and it will be good Tsar, not bad Tsar like a Putin. Okay, even if it will be a good Tsar for 1, 2, 3 years, then he will become a bad Tsar, or he will be not a Tsar, because this colonial system need a powerful, like they say, they need a твердая рука, like they called. Probably you have heard it about Khrushchev when he was in the United Nations. He said, "We'll show you Kuski na mać" with his boots. So in their mentality, if they united and this huge territory, the Russian Federation isn't like a South and North Tyrol or South and Northern California. It's bigger than South America. It's 17 million kilometers. It's bigger. It's bigger than United States and Canada, just a little more smaller. Yeah, Canada and United States together 18 million, something like that, and Russia is 17 millions. So it's huge, and it's no necessary for this huge territory to be one country, one state.
Well, let me put it this way. It's just a matter of time before Putin is gone. And a lot of that, honestly, depends on what Trump does in the next few months. But having said that, I still don't think he's long for this world, if even for the position of president. When he's gone, what would the free nations of post-Russia be doing? What would be your role, your organization's role in trying at least to start the dialogue in having these nations, these formerly independent nations, get their independence, or at least petition or try to get their independence in a post-Putin Russia?
Yeah, our idea is to be ready for this moment of sparking. Yeah, a moment of, it could be in any times. By the way, it was when it was Prigozhin March. If these movements were prepared for it, in this just we have 24 hours in 23 of June 2023 when everything was possible, because Moscow was collapsed and nobody knows what to do, and Prigozhin goes from Rostov to Moscow before he stopped. So the movements of independent Bashkortostan, in independent Tatarstan, Siberia weren't ready at that moment. So our point to be ready for next time. So when everything will start, it could be death of Putin, it could be some other moment, who knows what it be. It could be different way, but to be ready, to have people in their regions, in their nation, in the main city, who will take the authority, who will make some control of the cities, who won't take anybody else to have a violence, to kill, to rape people, and so on. To people who will have communication with main world capitals in Washington, Brussels, Berlin, Tokyo, Taipei, to have some legacy, not only inside, but also legitimization outside. So it's very important to be prepared what to do after. Okay, just imagine something happened in Moscow and Tatarstan become independent. They proclaim their independence, all world recognize it, and so on. What you will do for next 100 days? What you will do for next 3 or 5 years? You should do a lot of things. For example, you should make this illustration. You should make a denazification of this territory, because a lot of war crimes are in administration, who makes this Putin policy. You should have your economical system. You should have your taxes. You should have, for example, what to do with the borders. Will it open with your neighbors, for example, independent Bashkortostan, to trade, to have different people, or it will be closed? So a lot of questions that in our mind should be signed before they really become independent. For example, nukes, what to do with nuclear weapons. It's very important, because no one in the world want to have some Prigozhin with nuclear bomb like we have now with Putin, or with Lukashenko or Kadyrov. So this agreement should be signed. In our point, the main ideas about the borders, about the nukes, about the probably some reparation, for example, also before Moscow collapse, because if it will be after, it will be much more harder to do. So our platform is working to be prepared. It's in my mind, it's very important moment that in October of 2023, the leaders of all main captive nation and region in London and Paris, they signed their nuclear weapon pact that says all post-Russian spaces, independent states, won't have nukes. So they will give their nukes for example, MAGA or United States or United Nations or Great Britain or so on. If they will be recognized, they will give this all nukes. So I think it's very important, and it's like, some first step, what should be done before the Moscow collapse.
And we're going to have to leave it there today. Oleg, I think that the organization, the Free Nations of Post-Russia Forum, is an extremely important organization at this particular time, because I agree with you. It's only a matter of time when Putin is gone. And as you said, it could be tomorrow, it could be next month, could be next year, and he could go by any number of different means. We don't know who would take over for him, but having a plan in place, having people in place to step in and do the kinds of organization and actions and plans that you just talked about, it could be the difference between a peaceful transition and to be honest with you, civil war and maybe even World War III. So again, Oleg Magaletsky, thank you so much. And I'm going to check back in with you in the not too distant future, if that's all right. And we will do this again. So you take care. You stay safe, and by all means, stay sane.
Thank you. One more last point.
Sure.
Probably we'll have our next event will be our platform will be in 19th of March in Parliament of Romania in Bucharest. And after that, we'll have one more event in Washington, D.C. in the last day of June. It probably will be 26th of June. We'll speak with decision makers, opinion leader, and some stakeholders in Washington. And we're glad to see you on our event if you will be at that day in Washington. So you could also come and speak with leaders of captive nation and region. And I think it's very important in the United States to know that people, for example, who wanted to have Chechnya independent, or Tatarstan or Bashkortostan or India, they are normal, they're not fundamentalistic, they're not terrorist people like Moscow tried to sell it for all free world. And God bless America. Thank you for all the help and support that you make, not only for my country, Ukraine, but for all free world. Thanks.
Oleg, thank you. And we will talk again soon. You take care of yourself.
Bye.
If you enjoyed watching the discussion with Oleg Magaletsky, then please hit the subscribe button and also go over to buymeacoffee.com and buy me a coffee. Look, folks, after the inauguration that's taking place today in America, it's going to be more important than ever that you support channels like mine. What do I mean by that? Channels that are part of the, how shall we say, opposition to the fast approaching dictatorship, the authoritarian theocracy that is fast overtaking the United States of America. We're in danger, folks. When I say we, I mean not just the United States, I mean all Western democracies. And, there's fewer and fewer voices like mine, people that actually have the guts to talk against MAGA and the far-right lunatics that are not just here in the United States, they're all over Europe right now. And they are cowing. They are frightening people away. They don't want anybody to criticize them. Why? Because they're cowards. They are real cowards with low self-esteem who can't take criticism. And that's exactly where we have to hit them, with facts and criticism. And there's not enough channels out there like this. There's a few of them, and they're excellent. But there's not as many as there should be because we don't have the support. I'm telling you, I'm not going anywhere, but I do need your help. So if you want to see more interviews like the one you just saw here, as well as more monologues, more discussions, more opinions from me, about not just what's happening here in the United States, as I said, but in all Western democracies, and in fact, all over the world. We're in trouble. And I need your help. So please hit the subscribe button. Tell others to watch this channel and to subscribe. And go to buymeacoffee.com. It will help, and I would really, really appreciate it. You all take care, stay safe, and stay sane.